Good evening. My name is Arlene Miller, and it's my privilege to welcome you to this edition of Our Town. It's April in Longmeadow. Finally, spring has sprung, I think. Well, we had snow last night. And people may be starting to think, I know I am, about the special event that happens every spring in Longmeadow and every other town in Massachusetts, and that is an annual town meeting. Our town meeting this year is May 13th at 7 o'clock in the evening at the Longmeadow High School. My guests this evening are Marie Angelides, the chairman of the select board, and Stephen Crane, our town manager. And we're going to be talking tonight about the town's budget, which is one of several parts of the issues that we will be voting on at the annual town meeting on May 13th. So we're going to focus on the budget, somewhat general terms, to try to give us all a primer, we'll call it Budget 101, on how this document is developed. And some of us might think it takes a couple of months. Well, I think it takes more like 12 months to develop this budget. It is the working document. It is the footprint of what runs our government for the next 12 months. It's what you and I, the voting residents of the community, tell our elected officials they may spend on A, B, C, D, and E. So it's a real important document, and the process is long, it's careful, it's intensive, it's sometimes collaborative, sometimes not. So I'm very excited about this conversation, and we're just going to start with some background. First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. So we talked about having, first of all, the warrant, by the way, is 32 articles on the warrant.
31.
31 articles on the, that says mine is 32.
31.
Okay, well, articles on the warrant. And this is the Bible for the town meeting. This is the thing that we all work on for the town meeting. It will be coming out to all of our homes weeks before the May 13th town meeting. So look for it in your reminder. But for today, we're going to just focus on the budget. So the budget process, let's start from day one. We go to town meeting in May, and my guess is within a couple of weeks, you're already thinking about the following year.
Yeah, the ink isn't dry for too long on the new fiscal year budget before you start thinking about the next fiscal year budget.
So fiscal year.
Fiscal year is how municipalities track their finances rather than a calendar year. They call it a fiscal year. Ours is July 1st through June 30th.
And by ours, I believe you mean Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, Longmeadows, the federal government, for example, is October 1st through September 30th.
Right.
So, but I think every municipality in Massachusetts and the state all run on a July to June fiscal year.
Right.
And so when we say fiscal year 15, it will be, it'll cover spending for one half of calendar year 2014.
Fiscal year 2015 begins July 1st, 2014.
Yes, we are back to the future.
Yeah, we are back to the future.
And it sometimes is confusing because we also have an annual report that is for the calendar year.
Right, so we continue to spend on fiscal year 14 through June 30th.
Correct.
And monies that are voted on May 13th can then be used after July 1st.
Correct.
But those are really big dates in the municipal calendar. Is the fiscal year begin date and the end date. So a lot of panic, a lot of organization going around those dates. So okay, so you start working on the budget.
Right, we start working on the budget. I believe the budget directive goes out in the fall. And
who sends that out?
Usually, not usually, the town manager sends out the directive to department heads.
Okay.
There is some discussion up front with the select board in terms of what they'd see with the budget. For the fiscal year 2015 budget, the select board deferred to the town manager, to me, to make the directive, and our directive was for what we're calling a base level budget, which means existing services today, driven really largely by what are your personnel costs going to be, and a lot of those are fixed by collective bargaining agreements and contracts and things like that. And then if you want to do something more than you're doing today, if you want to add staff, if you want to expand services, then you need to submit a supplemental budget that identified what you were doing or what you were proposing to do, and then how much that was going to cost. And then we considered all the supplements after the finance director, Paul Pasturzik, is really the one who makes the magic on this. I mean, he goes through
Crunches the numbers.
He's the spreadsheet jockey. I admittedly am not the world's greatest numbers guy, but he and I working together did very well, I think, to sort through all the numbers, assess the impacts, go through the supplemental. I mean, because we are the town, it receives great services and has a high bond rating, which means it is well managed from a financial standpoint. But every year we are up against our Prop 2.5 cap, and that is really largely because most expenses beyond our control, most costs beyond our control go up more than 2.5%, but our ability to increase revenue is really capped at 2.5% because you don't get a lot of new growth.
Right, well, you just dropped out a bunch of big words, which I'm sure you don't, right?
Yes.
But we're talking about when I was in your chair in the 90s, we were in the 35 million dollar total amount of money we were spending as a community. Now we're up to about 60 million, is that fair? So a lot of things have changed. Of course, the economy has changed as well. So it's sort of a mouthful to say $60 million.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
It's for a town this size. It's a big. It is a large budget. I mean, obviously the schools are about 58% of that, and that is a reflection of how high a priority education is in the community, and that's something that makes Longmeadow the premier community of Western Massachusetts.
Right.
I think even though to some extent there is a sticker shock component to it, it really is a derivative of the priorities that the community has set for itself, and that's really a reflection of open town meeting form of government.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said, this was the first budget I was involved in developing, and just to go back a couple of steps to revisit the big words, obviously I said Proposition 2.5.
Yes.
That is obviously, as you know, a component of Mass General Law that limits the amount you can increase your tax levy by to 2.5% of the previous year.
It's not, and it's a distinction there between how much you can raise your budget versus that tax levy, because there's other revenues that come in to feed the budget, but the tax levy is the property tax.
Property
the amount,
taxes,
the property tax, a total pool can go up is limited to 2.5% a year.
And Longmeadow is, unlike other towns, they don't really get as many funds from the state. And so we really depend on that property
it's
tax.
not because we're bad people, it's because our economic level is they take an average, it's a very complicated, as I recall, formula as to what says how much state aid communities get. And the city of Holyoke, for instance, might get much more state aid per capita than we do because of our economic thing. So it's a good news, bad news
That's correct.
kind of thing. But the budget not only reflects the school priority, but reflects other priorities. And when you look around this community, you think of, well, what's special about Longmeadow? To me, we have probably more sidewalks than a lot of communities. We have probably more streetlights than a lot of communities. We have beautiful parks. We have a great fire department and police department and DPW. So we have a lot of amenities in this community that make it a special place. And that's when you're developing this. My guess is you want to preserve those elements.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that was the directive, is to retain those services and those level of services that we looked at in October. And every year that's getting to be more and more difficult.
More challenging.
Even with the 2.5% increase, because you have the salaries and other funding that needs to go into supporting the personnel that we have.
Right.
So I have to really give a lot of credit to Stephen and the department heads, because when they came in and asked for level service this year in October, the first thing that our CFO sat down and spoke in a joint meeting, Paul Pasturzik,
Chief Financial Officer.
Right, he told the school committee and the select board we had a $600,000 deficit projected for January, and that's what they had to sit down and really fight and work with in order to bring out the level service. And this is
A balanced budget.
balanced budget,
That's
and this
so
is a
refreshing.
phenomenal.
Right.
Balanced budget.
A balanced
Yeah.
budget.
Very,
We
very
are required to have a balanced budget, but there have been instances in the past in Longmeadow and of course elsewhere where, and I'll come back to what it means, but free cash has been used to balance the budget, and we do not
we've
do
done that ourselves.
Correct. We don't. This budget is balanced without using free cash, and I think one of the things that I think we're most proud of is that we were able to provide base level budget enhance services in certain key areas, and leave some room within our levy cap, that 2.5% cap, for additional capital spending, which we know has been a priority for the select board and really needed in town, because there have been many years where capital has been deferred.
Absolutely.
Because they
Didn't have the money.
didn't have the resources to balance the budget under Proposition 2.5.
Right.
And I can go into some of those factors, but to kind of put a capstone on this Prop 2.5 question,
Yes.
it's on the order of 80% of our budget relies on property tax revenue.
Okay.
And so when 80% of your budget is tied up with only a 2.5% increase, you know, we don't produce our own asphalt. We don't provide for our own health care. We do we do provide health insurance, but we don't set the billings, as you know, as our representative on Scantic Valley, which is our health insurance cooperative.
Right.
Those costs are beyond the town's control.
Right.
And so even though we can only go up 2.5% in what we can levy for that,
Other costs are going up that are
outside the control of
Sure.
anybody in town government, the costs go up beyond that. And the other thing I want to say generally in terms of the overall budget driver, by far, the biggest number, the biggest expense is personnel.
Right.
And that's wages and benefits are the two big numbers. And that's a substantial portion of the budget, I think.
Well, it's probably 80,
Yeah,
more
I
than
mean,
80% of the budget.
It's out of the total budget, it's probably on the order of 40 million or so.
Okay.
And I think sometimes that's another kind of, wow, it's kind of a sticker shock type moment.
Sure.
But again, we don't produce things. Our output is humans providing service to other humans.
It's your service entity, not
Right, we are a
not-
service
not
entity,
a
so while we do constantly look for ways to do things more efficiently and cheaper or more effectively and try and save money, because the department heads have a real pressure to stay on their budgets, but then also come up with budgets that provide base level services with the cost constraints we've talked about. So I just want the people who are going to be voting on this budget, our legislative branch, the town meeting, to understand that the service of people by people is the name of our business.
Yeah, and that's great.
And
That's
that's, so it's appropriate. I mean, if we were in the manufacturing, then you'd think the cost of the raw materials in the manufacturing process would be the cost driver. For us, our raw materials are the people who work here. And we are very fortunate to have a very talented workforce in all branches of town government, schools, public works, police department. I mean, it's a very, very talented team of committed people, and we're very lucky.
Absolutely. I was going to interject. First of all, this is your first budget, and our charter, which was, is, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. You people know more.
Almost 2000,
Almost
yeah.
10.
There's
Feeling old.
2004, 2005, that neighborhood?
2006.
It could be. It's a town meeting, town manager type focused charter, which gives the responsibility to do the budget to the town manager. Where before it was the selectman's budget, now it's the town manager's budget. And last year when I was interviewing you, and I can remember the buzz around the community, especially around some of the departments and the school department, was, oh, what a nice guy he is. He's going to be so friendly. We're going to really get along well. And I kept saying, well, you haven't seen him go through the budget yet. You might change your mind a year from now.
Well,
but you're sitting here smiling,
Yeah,
and you have
I'm
a
glad you're
balanced
saying that.
budget, and congratulations on that.
You know, I think there's two. I'm glad you said that, Arlene, because that's an excellent segue to one of the key things that I want to highlight about this budget as we head to town meeting. First thing is that folks are going to get this summary with their reminder before town meeting.
So that's not on the warrant. That's,
No,
that's
it is a
part of
separate
the
summary.
package.
It is a
Town
part of the
meeting
package that's going to come
And
out.
that's also, by the way, mandated in the charter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Year,
Remember that.
This year, the select board, at the behest of the finance committee, voted to implement Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, budgeting best practices. It's kind of an oversight group of government finance officers.
Okay.
It's a kind of like.
Where are they?
Where are they?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're based in Washington. I
Oh,
mean, it really
okay.
is
So it's a
like an advisory group.
Yeah,
Like
it's a national standard that
Oh,
they
okay.
recommended on
Okay.
how to display
Mm.
the budgets, so they're
Oh.
more transparent and easier to compare from year to year. So it's a completely new format, and you go from this to this.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you're going to have a PowerPoint?
I have a PowerPoint that goes along with the budget, but the budget summary that people will get is
I don't have that.
on the order of 14 pages, and that is what used to be distributed
Right.
to the town, and that was the budget, was the 14 to 20 page document. The GFOA budget that we produced this year, which was a whole added level of responsibility and work for the department heads, is 225 pages.
Oh,
And the reason why, and next year it'll be a lot easier to do the budget, because once you've produced the content, which
okay,
includes
this is interesting. I didn't know this.
pictures and organizational charts and goals and accomplishments. I mean, there's a lot of things that once you've produced it one time, it's easier to go back in and edit it and and change.
Was this your recommendation?
dates. This was the select board's directive, and it was really a good exercise. It really made departments tell the story behind the numbers
Better,
for what they do.
clearer, good.
And so when we say it's
Great.
not really transparent, there's really never any hiding anything during the budget processes, but it's not always intuitive. And even though one may say, how is going from 20 pages to 200 pages make it easier, you can pick up our town budget, the full town budget document, and read it cover to cover, as if it was a magazine.
Yeah.
And that will be, we're
Available?
not sending one of those to everybody.
Good.
That would be, we would
Out
have,
of trees.
we wouldn't be able to balance the budget had we had to print all of those.
It'll be online.
It'll be online, it'll be at the town buildings, which is where the budget's typically displayed.
Yeah.
But this year, something new to really embrace the spirit of the openness and accessibility of the GFOA budget best practices. We're going to leave copies in restaurants and places where people go, like Starbucks.
Starbucks, yes.
Starbucks, and just, because I know we do that with our Parks and Rec brochures.
Right.
And we thought, well, if we do it with our brochures, we should leave reference copies, so if people
Great.
go
Great
to
idea.
Max's, for example, and have a beer and want to leaf through the budget.
I'm sure that's what they're going
Yeah,
to do.
I mean, that's the first thing I'm going to do.
Yeah, well,
So I think that
or White
that's,
Hut, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's really important for us, is to, I want to highlight the work that departments
Yeah.
did, because it wasn't just crunching the numbers, which in and of itself was a tremendous accomplishment. They also produced just hundreds of pages of content that really explains
Can't
what
wait to
town
see-
operations.
I can't wait to
it's
see
gonna be. I'm thrilled for it. I'm proud of
Excited.
it. And the second thing I want to say is the budget is balanced, and the goal was
It's always so refreshing.
a no drama budget.
Love that.
Yes,
No drama.
no drama budget. And
Is it the 15-minute budget? I mean, can we vote on it in 15 minutes?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, well-
But I think it certainly merits as much debate as town meeting wants to have.
Fair.
But and let me just say this isn't necessarily a statement about Long Meadow, but town versus schools is a common theme in towns all over
Yes, it is.
Massachusetts.
It is.
And that's just a nature of how school committees are elected versus how the funds are raised and appropriated. In Wisconsin, where I worked before coming back to Massachusetts, the school district was its own taxing jurisdiction. So there was never any conflict between the city government, because we raised and appropriate our own taxes, they raised and appropriated theirs. Here, it's all blended together.
It's blended together, but also you, as the town manager,
Mm-hmm.
get to say to all departments how
Yep.
much can be spent, not
Yeah.
just the town departments, the school department as well.
Well,
No, but you don't tell them
technically,
how to spend it.
The select board can do that. I mean, I go through and the budget that the town manager's recommended budget goes to the select board. And then the select board debates it, and then they make changes to it if they want. And then they submit the budget that goes to town meeting. So in truth, the budget before town meeting is the select board's budget, but it is based largely on the town manager's budget, which a whole chapter of is the school
Sure,
department's
sure,
budget.
absolutely.
Now, and I want to commend the school department and the school committee, because they also, their budget best practices are not called GFOA, it's ASBO, ASBO. I'm not even really sure what, I know, it's an unfortunate acronym, and
That's okay.
I'm not sure what it stands for, but their budget document, like ours, is really transformed to be much more visually friendly.
User-friendly.
Very
Yeah,
much more
user-friendly.
user-friendly. So I
Good.
want to commend them for doing that first. But like I said, we wanted to, when I came here, one of my goals was to work collaboratively with the school department, as you said, and really kind of see if we could just, work together well on the budget. And, I give Marie credit. She, as chair, scheduled and organized this joint meeting in the fall, which isn't all that common. I mean, it does happen, but it's not all that common.
Used to happen.
And we had CFO Paul Pasturzik and the assistant superintendent for finance for the schools, Tom
Tom Mazza.
Mazza, sit next to each other and review jointly a set of budget assumptions that they both agreed on that yielded a $600,000 deficit. And it gave the school committee, I mean, the select board deals with the budget every year. The school committee doesn't necessarily see their budget in the context of the broader town budget, and this really highlighted for them what the issues were.
Good.
And so that really kicked off the budget process that was very collaborative with the school department and the school committee. And so when the school committee approved their budget, even though the directive said base level budget, the school department's budget expands services. So it technically was not within the, in accordance with the directive. However, their general fund increase was less than 2.5%, which certainly keeps with the spirit of the directive, which is make sure your number doesn't grow any more than the ability to fund that number, that budgetary increase,
Right.
which they were able to achieve by really delineating what their priorities were and making some tough decisions on offsets and other, revenue and ways to gather revenue, but also offsets in expenditures, so they could deliver a budget. And I think that, and so even though they did spend a lot of time talking about it, ultimately the select board made really minor adjustments to the budget that was presented to them. And I think that speaks to the collaborative process that we engaged in. So
there are highlights in the budget that you want to point out, or just are you comfortable with this?
Well, no, I think it's important to say that even though the directive came out level service, there are a few aspects that they're increase in services here. And that's one of the things that I do really have a lot of respect for this budget and the work that the schools as well as the employees put in it, because the three areas that I think we look about increased services, one is the schools did bring in a program that was a value of about $500,000, which it was to increase literacy. They called it a literacy program, and it's for 3rd and 4th grade, where they really felt the scores were dropping. And so they've added some teachers. They explained why it was really important at this time for them to work on this special program. And they talked to Stephen, they explained what the process was, and we really felt it was important for moving off the directive for this program. And also, the town manager was able to find a space where we increased services down for the adult center too.
Oh, great.
And I think that was really valuable to see. And there was a third area which you also moved a little bit off.
We did.
But still, in all of this, despite where there was decisions to prioritize and increase services, it was still brought in as a balanced budget, which it shows that there was a lot of thought and work that went into getting there. And the third area was
we're adding some staff availability for our parks department.
Oh, great.
That was it.
Great.
Because we know over the course of the past year, I've heard loud and clear from the board and from people in the community that the condition of the parks is a priority, the condition of our infrastructure overall is a priority, and has some deficiencies that need to be addressed. And that the senior population feels, or some of them anyway, feel that compared to other priorities in the budget, they don't really get as much out of the budget.
Well, their budget is small.
It is small, and truthfully, I do agree.
We get a lot of bang for the buck.
They get a lot of bang for the buck, and obviously the Council on Aging and the Senior Center over at Greenwood are well run, and actually the programs down there have been expanded for seniors really for almost no cost to the town.
Right.
Ski trips and hiking and all.
Going to New York City, they go to Tanglewood.
It's not just going down and playing bridge at 3 o'clock.
Oh, not at all.
Really
We're watching movies. No, absolutely.
I
Very
see,
active group.
I hear from Emily Perkins, who's our director at the Council on Aging. I see all the activities she's doing, and I think I'd rather trade
Yeah.
jobs with her, because she has a lot of fun. And I think that's, but still, the overall, when you take the whole sum of the town's budget and what senior population gets out of it, it really is probably disproportionate to other, constituent areas. So we were able to expand by 5 hours. We expanded Emily's hours by 5
Per week.
which can lead to the center being open a little longer, or really give her the ability to do more with her time.
Yep.
I mean, she puts in more hours than she gets paid for currently, and that's great, but we also want to keep her, because she does do a great job, but also give her the opportunity to know that if she does put in the extra effort to improve the seniors' experience, that she will be, you know, properly rewarded for that.
Yeah, I also think it's important to note that, you know, things, your team, since you've been here, and I think you're, with your leadership, I mean, you've been looking at ways to do things with cost-saving measures, like the Green Communities proposal that you guys got, the money you got for that, and the fact that you might be able to save money over the long run with the streetlight purchase, whatever, however you're going to do that. We don't need to go into that here, but so that's going to save. You know, the trash contract is going to save money.
That is a big cost saver.
The health, but that's a trend. It's not just, you know, we were lucky to be part of that regional program, but even the regional health trust. You know, because we've come together, we've been able to work on regional ways to save money. So it's not like it just sort of magically happened. I mean, the collaboration is great. We're not necessarily getting a lot more money from the state, but we are constantly, as a community that's sort of landlocked or, you know, built out and not have a lot of industry, looking for creative ways. I know you're talking about solar and lots of different ideas, nonstop, to try to contain these costs and always maintain the services, because this is what the community is about. It's about a feel. It's about a community feel, and it's about quality of life. It's exactly what it is. And the community preservation money. I mean, we've been able to do some things for parks, for lots of different, for the buildings in town, because we've worked hard to get some of these other funds in that we can't, so we don't have to raise the tax dollars. So it's all the package.
And the work that's going behind the scenes, as you said, is what's pulling the pieces together.
Right.
And I think I was interested in when Stephen interviewed, and he said budgeting's a year-long process. And all of those little pieces started to fall into place. And so even though we saw a $600,000 deficit in October, we knew where to start to get the work. And Scantic Valley was huge this year.
Helped.
To very big help.
Yeah.
I think it was tremendous because our pension cost did go up. To have it come in at the zero increase was very, very valuable, as well as the decrease in the retiree health costs. So we saw that. We saw some increase in the wireless leases, in the trash compact contract. So this is something that is a very complicated process. It goes all year long, and you never know how all the pieces are going to land. And we were just so pleased when it landed after all this work into a balanced budget.
Do you know what the state is? Have they passed a budget?
The Ways and Means numbers have come out for the local aid, the local.
I mean, do we know that piece? Because often that piece is, you know, we don't know it until.
We have, and this is the thing.
That would be revenue.
This is a great segue into the free cash conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't want to.
They've already given me the 5-minute mark, but
Okay.
we'll just keep going.
So, we want to talk about what free cash is.
Yes. So the different parts of the different words in the budget are free cash, enterprise
free
fund.
cash is not in the budget. So,
But general, you have it as
you have
general
general fund, and those are property tax revenues.
Okay.
And then you have enterprise fund, which are water, sewer, and
Trash.
solid waste, trash. I know you love talking trash. And those are fee for services. Basically run the utilities, the water utility and sewer utility are essentially run like businesses, where income needs to meet costs. And
Trash isn't quite that way.
trash is not quite that way, but we're building towards that. And so for the water utility, obviously we don't pump our own water, we don't generate our own water, so we buy it from Springfield. And same thing, similarly, we send our sewer discharge to Springfield. They bill us, and then we pass that along with some markup to take. We do maintain our own water mains, our own sewer mains, things like that. So we have a lot of cost of our own that goes into the water and sewer utilities. But those funds are segregated to the enterprise funds. Now, the key thing is, even a tax-exempt property still pays on the enterprise funds. They pay their water utility bills, they pay their sewer utility bills, even if they don't pay property taxes.
Right. So generally, you've used the word free cash, and we've used the word enterprise
I've not
fund.
defined free cash,
That's
though.
correct.
Right.
That's good. Go ahead.
So the general fund is property taxes, and then you have other revenues. You have state aid, is about 10% of our budget, and that includes some of the aid to schools. And then you have other revenues, local property. We have a meals tax. We have a local vehicle excise tax. So there are other, but those.
We have fees we charge for the
Dump
recycling
sticker,
center, all that stuff. But that all goes into the solid waste enterprise.
Correct. And some of the fees we charge go in the general fund as well.
Right.
So not all of them go
Right.
to
Park and Rec
enterprise.
charges fees, so
Correct.
those fees are part of the formula.
So anyway, every dollar in this budget, as proposed, is spoken for. And so any change, and so if a budget gets amended on town meeting floor to shift funds from one part of the budget to another, and town meeting does not have line item authority where they can't amend line items, it's just
Bottom line.
bottom line, take some from the schools and give it to the town, or vice versa, something like that. When that happens, it sets off a domino effect because every dollar is spoken for. And when you're budgeting, the trick about municipal budgeting is you're guessing forward. You're guessing what revenues are going to be from the state. You're guessing what your excise taxes you're going to collect from vehicles are. You're guessing how many
Right.
dinners people are going to eat in town. And then you're guessing
So it's projected revenue.
projected revenues. Now, for the most part, we have a good sense of what our costs are going to be. We get, at the beginning of the budget process, we're guessing what Scantic Valley is going to give us for our assessment for health insurance. This year, one of the big moments, again, was the 0% increase in health insurance premiums. That's a big cost saver. So as the budget kind of pulls together, these variables move up and down and change, and you're still trying to guess, again, some of the bigger ones. You're guessing about how many property abatements there are going to be. I mean, there's lots of variables in here. How many grants you're going to get to offset certain costs. And the town budgets very conservatively. We tend to overestimate costs and underestimate revenues.
Which is good.
And that's why we have a very, very high bond rating, because we have good reserves and we budget conservatively. And the reason why you do that is because town meeting approves the budget once a year and you set the tax rate once a year, you cannot go back. So
Well,
all you have
special
is
town meeting in
you have a special
November.
town meeting, but truthfully, your reserves are all you have to cover any shortfall.
Right.
And so if you guessed wrong on your revenues or your expenditures and you have a deficit, it's really devastating to the town.
Absolutely.
So we always budget conservatively. Now, we talk about free cash. Free cash is what happens, is the result of when revenues exceed projections and or expenditures come in at or below budgeted amounts.
So it's the money in the bank.
It's not even the money in the bank. Eventually, the operational stabilization fund is the money in the bank. And operational stabilization fund is built largely through the select board policy of taking free cash over 500,000, unobligated free cash over
That's what I
500,000,
want to talk about.
and putting it to operational stabilization.
Okay.
Now, when I say unobligated, frequently at fall town meeting,
So this budget, let me just say, this budget is balanced, so we all know what balance
Yeah.
means. So the amount we expect to spend is going to be covered by expected revenue.
Revenue.
It's all
Yes.
expected
Right.
worth, right?
Projected, yeah.
Projected revenue and expenses. But that doesn't mean at the end of the day, there's no money in our bank. So the obligated is the word there. So at the end of this day, is there any money in the bank?
no, we don't budget for free cash.
But you have free cash.
Free cash, like I said, every dollar is spoken for to provide some level of service.
Right.
Okay? We don't have a line item in here that says free cash.
I got that, but nor did you spend free cash to balance the budget.
We did not spend free
So I
cash.
assume
We
that
did
there's
have
some money
free-
in the bank.
We have some free cash left over, although by the time, we are, technically, we are allocating $50,000 of fiscal year 14 free cash, which is a result of the last year's budget. Actually, it's a result of FY13's budget, to get
Okay.
technical, but we are putting $50,000 into capital, which is one of the things free cash is often used for. Free cash, again, is not something we
You're not
budget
answering
for.
my question.
What's that?
How much money is going to be left at the end of the budget?
At the end of this budget,
Yeah, in free cash.
well, we won't know until next fall. We won't.
About.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
But what is projected?
Thank
Okay,
you.
so what he's.
No, but I'm saying the free cash number that we know, or we expect to have certified in the fall, at the fall town meeting.
Yes.
Which is what happens every year. The free cash from the previous fiscal
Can't
year.
wait.
So this fall, the fiscal year 2014, our current budget year, we are expecting about $1 million in free cash to be certified in the fall town meeting.
November 2014.
In November of this year.
Okay.
The budget that the town will be voting on in May, we won't know the free cash number, if any, until November 2015. So I
Okay,
want to make
okay.
sure people are clear.
Well, but the
Because
point is, we're not,
you're confusing it a little bit, because
Okay.
you're conveying to me the impression that we have a stash of cash in this budget. We do not.
I'm not talking about a stash of cash.
Okay.
I'm just saying, that's a good position to be in. You don't want to draw that down, and I'm certain there's some sort of formula about how much of that sort of bank, a savings account, I call it.
It's over 500,000.
And so your goal is to keep a 500,000, and then anything after that you put into even a more special savings account called the operational.
Operational savings, but we spend it because to balance the budget every year with virtually or almost no new growth every year, and we have one of the lowest new growth rates in the state because we're built out, we defer on a lot of things,
Sure.
especially capital.
Sure.
And so that's why at the fall town meeting, a lot of capital projects are put forward and funded with the previous year's free cash, because it is the taxpayers' money, and we should give it back to them.
We're not just trying to save it.
Right.
But at the same time, you want to be prepared for unforeseen things that do happen, and that's why the town created the operational stabilization fund, so there wouldn't be these big spikes and dips in the taxes and in the expenses, so it would sort of even out things a little bit over time. Is that accurate?
And it's also good fiscal policy. We're looking at other towns, and the Finance Committee is sort of pointed us in that direction, the Select Board, and what other towns are doing in order to get better credit rating, in order to really push up their rating, and for when we go out to bond. And some of the things that they really look at that's important is how do we use free cash. If you're using free cash to balance
the budget,
reoccurring costs, that's considered a no-no.
Right.
You use free cash for capital. They also are saying it's very important to what we have as a policy, which is anything over 500,000 goes into the stabilization fund. And that is really a very important fund that tells the health of the community. Now, right now, we are at 6%, and it's recommended we try to push up to 10 or 11%. So we have fiscal goals that we're trying to reach, and this budget, we did the first step, which was really important. That is, do not use free cash.
Yeah, and that I don't believe it's happened in quite a while.
Yeah, and also Stephen and his departments actually came in under the levy limit, and that's the first time, according to Paul, Paul Pastorski, has been done in years, and then decided to take that little extra and to put it towards capital.
Yeah.
So
and in addition, you're not asking for an override.
Right.
I mean, these are all wonderful things, and we really should. If you want to do a 30-minute, we've already done a 45-minute. So.
Well, I just want to follow up on a couple of points.
This is perfect. I love it. I can go on all day.
I think we presented to the Select Board that there was available levy capacity, and our recommendation was capital, and the board did. So the board had a choice. Either don't tax to the limit or spend it on much needed capital. And the board spent a lot of time talking about capital, and they made, which I think is the wise decision, to do some additional expenditures on capital with the funds, because it really makes a small difference on individuals' tax bill. The amount of levy that was available is like $150,000 out of 50 million or whatever.
59 million, 60 million.
So on our property tax bills, it's a very small amount, but the impact to the infrastructure is significant. And so I think she's right, we did that. I think the October 2011 snowstorm and the costs that were incurred and our ability to deal with that, even though I wasn't here, I did read about it. The fact that we had healthy reserves enabled us to do that. The other thing is, she's right, the healthy reserves are a key factor in your bond rating.
Right.
We are still paying debt service on the building in which we sit right now, and Paul Pastorski could probably figure out what the interest payments would have been if we had a lower bond rating, and I think people would gasp at how much having our reserves and how well we are managed saved us on interest costs for the high school project. So
this is very exciting. It really is very exciting. It really is very exciting. In fact, I haven't heard a lot of backstabbing, that often goes on with the budget process. I have not. I know it's been a boring budget.
I cannot imagine.
Almost a boring budget season. In fact, as I say, I bumped into the chairman of the school committee today, and he was very, copacetic about the budget and the process, and there were no stuff going on. So I applaud your team in your first year budget. Congratulations! We got a T-shirt. My first year budget is done.
And I'll get this lousy T-shirt. One of those. I appreciate that very much, Arlene. Like I said, that was a goal from the very beginning of mine, to really avoid a lot of that. The Select Board, I think, also agreed with that, just by virtue of how the relatively minor modifications to the budget. I think they recognize that working collaboratively did produce a document that everyone could, for the most part, get behind. And like I said, I think the one message I want to convey to folks at home, though, is, like I said, to go back to the free cash point, every dollar in here is spoken for, and so when if somebody wants to add something at town meeting or take something away, it does have
moves
to come.
things around.
And it has to come from someplace. And so I just want, because when we get into the discussion of free cash is a one-time expense. And you get it now, granted, we get free cash every year, but that is a result of our budgeting approach, which I wouldn't change. It was Long Meadow's approach long before I got here, and I wouldn't change it for anything because I think it's the right approach. And we also spend it on capital every year. And so it feels like a recurring revenue and a recurring expenditure, but the fact of the matter is free cash every year is a non-recurring revenue because you get lucky.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, no.
And then
lucky
the
and
capital.
unlucky. I've been in the unlucky.
Right.
Yeah.
So then capital feels like a recurring thing, but each project
It's different.
only occurs one time. So if you're doing a roadway, you're not going to touch it again for another 20 years.
Well.
And as she said, you don't. One of our fundamental rules for finance, for public finance, is don't spend one-time money on recurring expenses.
Don't spend free cash on
So don't
recurring
spend
things.
free cash on
In the
wages,
balance.
benefits, things
Right.
like that. I
Right.
think that's the thing people need to
And
understand.
you're painting a very nice picture and a very healthy financial picture for the community, a very stable picture. But at the same time, I'm assuming that not everybody didn't get everything they wanted. Decisions had to be made.
Sure.
People, like every department probably came in with a wish list, and somewhere somebody said, no, we can't do all of that. There's more we would like to do, but this plan, if I'm hearing you correctly, is going to preserve those characteristics about this community that are important to the community and improve some services in certain areas that needed it. And it sounds wonderful. I mean, I would encourage your residents to look for this when it comes to you in the mail, and if you for some reason don't see it in your reminder, ask for it. I'm sure there'll be extra copies available online or at the town hall maybe, and read it and come to the town meeting and vote on it. And this is great. I mean, we can talk different pieces of this. If you want it to go longer, you can, but I think we're getting to, you might want to.
And I just want to make sure people check out the full version.
Yes.
The full GFOA,
The 200-page version.
220-page version. Leaf through it. It really is an attractive document. It has pictures and really, like I said, it tells. These are numbers. This tells the story. The full version tells the story behind the numbers. And so it'll be, like I said, at the library, at town hall, online. It'll hopefully. I think we're getting it back from the printers in a week or so.
I can't wait. But what's interesting, we've been talking for 45 minutes about the budget, and we haven't talked about one number except what the final number is, and that's kind of interesting. I mean, that tells you how complicated and how all the energy that goes in is about. It's about these concepts, it's about policy, it's about the vision for the community, it's about trying to grow services, preserve services. I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of it, and it comes at it in the form of a budget, but we haven't talked about a number, which is interesting.
I think the interesting thing is when I did an interview for the position, I talked about my theory on municipal finance, which is most things can be divided between fixed and flexible. And generally speaking, most costs for municipal budgets are fixed. And wages, benefits, debt service, obligations by virtue of a contract or something like that, those are all fixed. I mean, how many people we have working for the town to some extent is flexible, but if you give up a person, then that service isn't going to be provided.
Sure. In trash, we talk the same thing.
Right. And so when it literally gets to the point when we're in the nitty gritty of when Paul and I are in cloisters trying to figure out how we're going to put all the numbers together. Oh, we got a grant for $3,500, so that can offset this, and we can perhaps. We may have an account that didn't get fully expended this year, so we can move something around a little bit, where you're dealing with $5,000 and $10,000 increments out of $54 million. I mean, that's the thing that I think people hopefully can appreciate.
That's right.
That,
a lot of work.
That when they say, well, go down to every column. I mean, we have been through Paul and I went through the exercise of going through line by line, what's fixed, what's flexible. And even the things that are flexible, which are expenses, include vehicle maintenance, utility costs,
pencils,
office supplies. We go if people haven't spent their office supply budgets in several years, we cut it.
Yeah.
And so you get down to that level. So we do go line by line with a scalpel to go through this. And so that's how you get to the budget.
Is there a sense of relief?
Well,
Are you relaxing yet about this? No.
Because it's constantly moving. And
Okay.
when you really look, and one of the things that the new form of budget will show you, you're looking at what's moving down the future. You not only saw what happened last year, but you know what's coming down next year. And he's now projecting 2 or 3
2
months
years.
out there next year what could happen. So there's never a point where this is just like a photograph taken of today. This is where we are, but we know the pieces are going to keep moving. And so it is a very complicated process.
Very fluid process.
And I have a lot of respect for Paul Pasteur because he is able to keep an eye on all those. And we have to keep looking out for other ways. Like you said, looking at Scantic Valley, looking out at the trash contract, looking at solar, because if we don't really project where we're going to be next year or the year after, then by the time that year comes, we're in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is, in fairness, there's a real intense period in January, February, March when you're cloistered, as you said.
I hear-
looking
yes.
at, there must be a little bit of relief.
May 14th,
Well,
we might breathe.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Well, you got,
I
you
think-
got the casino thing struggling too.
Oh, no,
what's-
but
just in
May
terms of the budget-
14th, that's okay.
Because
That's
really
what I'm saying.
the legislative body will be making the final decisions.
Right.
This is a town meeting form of government.
Exactly.
So we will really know where this stands and where we're going forward May 14th. So I think maybe we'll have a cup of tea after.
Yes, sure, tea. No, I think
I was thinking something else.
Am I relieved? I mean, to some extent, I was
That's-
relieved
yes.
when I was able to present the budget we were able to present that was balanced and really tried to hit some of the high notes that I've heard are important to town. I think my level of anxiety is now increasing because, as you say, we spend months preparing this document, and the people who get to make the final decision are people who probably have not spent months thinking about it.
Right, well, that's why we're trying to do this.
Right,
Exactly.
so
So
it's-
educate the people, that's our whole purpose.
People in town I've noticed are smart, they're engaged, they care about their community, and they care about being informed. And so that's why I'm confident that town meeting will see the documents, review them, hopefully go look at the larger document just to learn better about what the town does, and make good decisions at town meeting.
So are you doing a budget meeting? I mean, a public hearing or before? Are you doing anything
The select board
publicly?
had a series of public
I did
meetings.
before the budget was finalized,
Right.
but now in terms of, so this is really it to educate the people.
This is- well, it's a step.
The step.
It's a very
Okay, so well,
important
let's
step.
do a warrant taping and any other issues
Ooh,
that.
cliffhanger.
Look,
A cliffhanger ending.
yeah, we can have.
To be continued.
Budget too, yeah, to be continued. Well, no, I think it's important. I mean, I don't know how many people. Well, I'm hoping a lot of people are watching this, of course, but I think this is great to let people, get informed about it because, the interesting thing is how many people do come to town meeting. We probably have, 400, 500, 600 people, maybe more at a town meeting, depending on the issues. This one, I think there'll probably be a good number of people at the high school on May 13th at 7 o'clock. Great. I mean, it's great that people get involved, but I think we should wrap it, and then if you want to talk about different aspects of it, we can do another taping,
Yeah.
because I think we don't want people, they might be running out of their popcorn at this point.
LCTV charges by the minute, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know, but last comments, final summary comments from either of you, or?
Certainly, if you have any questions, if people get the document, they have any questions about things, they should certainly give me a call at Town Hall.
Yeah, and we should say this is being taped April, what is it, the 16th? And this document will be available,
I think tomorrow, the 17th.
which you won't see that, you won't see us before then, but I'm hoping that people will see it in their reminder. And if not, look online.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, contact the town manager or even the select board if they have any questions.
Any questions. And we're hoping there's a lot of dialogue. I think the best thing is if there's a lot of dialogue before the town meeting,
Yeah.
so that people don't come in totally ignorant about what's going on. But you do a presentation, probably a PowerPoint, and that's very helpful.
Town meeting is really important. I mean, it's really one of the few democracies left in
It's
this
wonderful.
world.
I love it.
It's fabulous. And if you've never been to one, you should come to one. And it is
Come to lots.
Come to lots, but come and see it in process. It's it gets messy, but it gets fun. And most of all, you have a direct voice, and that's so rare in this world.
You get to vote on your quality of life in your town. That's the time to vote.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
it makes a difference. Town meeting makes the final decisions on everything.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank my guest, Marie Angelides, the chairman of the select board, and Stephen Crane, our town manager, for this informative and lively discussion about the budget without talking about numbers. I think it's a very interesting thing. And invite everybody to attend the annual town meeting on May 13th at 7 o'clock at the Long Meadow High School gymnasium, not the auditorium. And thank you and good evening.